Well, hello again. In my last episode, I dealt with the rules for induction and kind of highlighted some of the reasons why you wanted to know the rules up in advance and do it correctly. In this episode of How to Do Atkins, I will be dealing with the acceptable food for the induction. Know what these foods are in advance so you can prep your pantry to have them in there, and so you won't be tempted by perhaps foods that they're off the plan list. The base staple for any Atkins diet, let me do this up front for all the vegans out there and vegetarians, is typically meat and eggs. You can eat liberal amounts until you're satisfied of all fish, all fowl, red meat, white meat, poultry, and eggs. Remember to count the carbs that are found in eggs, which is, if you ever cared, it's 0.6 carbs per egg. So if you had a dozen eggs, that's 7.2 carbs. And for the processed foods, the processed meats like deli meats, be sure to try to pick the meats that are processed or cured without sugar in them. It might not be much sugar, but it could cause a craving. In addition to the meat and eggs, of course, you can have cheese, to the amount of cheese you can eat per day. You can have 3 to 4 ounces of full-fat, firm, soft, or semi-soft cheese. Well, if you're like me, who knew nothing about cheese going into Atkins, you might be thinking to yourself, what kind of cheese is that? Well, according to the site, that's cheddar, cow, sheep, or goat cheese. So if you like goat cheese, you can eat it. Cream cheese, which is a big bonus for if you're looking for a dessert. Cream cheese is the place where it's at. Gouda, mozzarella, Roquefort, or in Swiss. In addition to the standard dairy cheeses, there are acceptable alternatives such as soy cheese, which is tofu, obviously, and rice cheese. Let's get into the vegetables that you can have, because believe it or not, the vegetables are just as important as the meats and cheeses are to being a successful Atkineer. Atkins is not just eating meat and cheese. You can have up to 2 to 3 cups of these solid vegetables per day. And there's much more on the list, but I'm going to deal with some of my favorites. Mushrooms, peppers, celery, jicama, and you might be asking what jicama is. I certainly didn't know going into this diet, but it just proves you that you need to start trying new things. Radishes, lettuce of all sorts, including romaine, and cucumbers. These solid vegetables are high in nutrient value and provide a good source of fiber, which Atkineer knows is a very beneficial thing to keep yourself regular. One of these things that keep in mind when you're doing Atkins is perhaps not cook vegetables as you had before. Before Atkins, I would have never tried radish fries, in which you cut up the fries into shapes of French fry shapes and fry them in a fryer. I won't say that they're one of my favorite foods, but I tried them. There are certainly some people who just love turnip or radish fries. Another food, like I mentioned earlier, was jicama. I never tried jicama before, and I couldn't pick it out of a lineup at a produce store before Atkins, but in doing it since then, I found out that jicama makes a semi-decent alternative for eating apples. There's a recipe out there for baked jicama, which is similar to baked apples. In addition to that, you can substitute 1 of those cups of salad vegetables per day for other vegetables. On that other vegetable list contains a lot of non-starchy, not high in sugar content vegetables. Some of the highlights on that list are artichokes, pumpkin, rhubarb, asparagus, scallions, spaghetti squash. For all you people who love your pasta, spaghetti squash represents the one way to reclaim being able to cook Alfredo. Eggplant, spinach, broccoli, which is my wife's favorite, string or wax beans, broccoli rabe, summer squash, Brussels sprouts, leeks, turnips, cabbage, which is one of my favorites, cauliflower, onions, and zucchini. One qualifier with this list If, like with cabbage, which reduces down quite a bit once you cook it, you must measure it in the raw state before, rather than in the cooked state. For salad dressings, look for ones that are one or two carbs or less and do not feature grams of sugar in them. Spices, one interesting note, cocoa or unsweetened dark chocolate is considered a spice. So while you have to count the carbs that might be in it, you are allowed chocolate on Atkins. Most people do not realize that. Acceptable fats and oils, like I mentioned in my last episode, oils and fats are good on this diet. They're encouraged to be used. Remember, you also don't need to remove the skin or the fat from meat or fowl. I dealt with the artificial sweeteners in the last episode. I'll just reiterate, aspartame been shown to cause stalls in 25% of Dr. Atkins' clinical patients. What to drink while doing induction. Be sure to drink, like I said in the last episode, drink at least a minimum of 64 ounces per day of water, and that includes filtered water, mineral water, spring water, or tap water. In addition to that, but not replacing the 64 ounces of water, you can drink clear broth or bouillon, club soda, heavy cream, decaffeinated coffee or tea, and you can also put in up to 2 ounces of lemon juice or lime juice in your water. Some special category foods, which might be considered foods that are acceptable snack foods. 10 to 20 olives per day, half an avocado, which really is useful for me because I love guacamole, an ounce of sour cream, or 3 ounces of heavy cream. And heavy cream with eggs, making a custard. It literally is the source of many of the main dishes, like an upside impossible cheeseburger pie, pizza, or the ever-present staple of low-carb dieting, mock Danish. Be sure to stay tuned for the next episode in which I detail how to make a mock Danish and what a mock Danish is. Finally, convenience foods. Let me touch upon this because it's a touchy subject for many Atkineers. Many Atkineers swear they live by the shakes. While it is said within the Dr. Atkins New Diet Revolution that he did allow for the shakes and the meal replacement bars to be used within induction, he highly discouraged the use of it and throughout the book encouraged the eating of whole foods without processing as much as possible. While it is acceptable to eat them, be aware that they have been proven to cause stalls in many Atkineers, and I cannot discourage their use enough for those that are trying to be successful. So what happens when the Atkins Nutritional Approach Company goes out of business, or one of the other low-carb nutrition places go out of business and takes one of your favorite low-carb convenience foods away? So one of the things I would encourage each of you considering to do Atkins do before one begins the start of induction is to go and clean out your pantry of any of the unacceptable foods, the foods that I did not mention here. And also, and perhaps more importantly, start to browse some of the low-carb recipe sites. Linda's low-carb menus and recipes happens to be one of my favorites. I would urge you to start looking at finding low-carb alternatives to some of your favorite foods that you have now. One of the foods that I love to cook now that I had to find a replacement for was fried chicken. And I found out that a great replacement for fried chicken, or the breading on fried chicken, is Parmesan cheese. Another acceptable breading for fried foods I found out was crushed pork rinds. Well, my initial reaction to crushed pork rinds was gross, but try it. You might like it. I certainly found out that it does indeed make a good breading for chicken. It's learning how to make low-carb conversion foods to past comfort foods is what's going to make you successful. It's what separates the guy who's bored with their Atkins diet with eating the meat and the cheese and more meat and more cheese person to the guy who goes out, finds the conversion recipes or how to rethink some of the old favorite foods that they had, and that sells on the Atkins diet. Again, Linda's low carb recipe site, #1 in my book for finding new recipes and adding new flavors into one's diet. With that, that's the How to Atkins episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you stay tuned for the next one, which should feature me in the kitchen and showing you how to cook a mock Danish. Thank you very much.